Okay, good afternoon. So my name is Philip Lane. I'm head of economics here in Trinity. So the plan is I'm going to talk about economics in Trinity, maybe for about 15 minutes, and then I'm just going to take questions from you. And then after the session is over, I'll also hang around if you want to ask me something at a more private level. So essentially, my presentation has two elements. One is why study economics as opposed to anything else. And then the second element will be why study economics here in Trinity. So maybe some of you are taking economics for the leaving. But, well, first of all, let me say is that turns out not to make a big difference. For the first month or two, those who've taken economics for the leaving maybe have an advantage, but by December, by about now, we see no difference whatsoever between those who have taken economics for the leaving and those who have not. So no way is economics at the leaving necessary to study economics in college. So economics, in many ways, is just a way of thinking. It's an approach to different questions. So at that level, it's very general. It's important to say only maybe 1 in 100 become a professional economist. It's quite rare. By no means every year do we get someone who ends up being a professional economist. So most people end up doing something else in terms of their post-university life. You might go into business. That's obviously where most people end up. A lot of people go into the financial world, but economics is also very relevant for any kind of strategic role. So that can be consulting. So firms like McKinsey, Bain, and so on, those big consulting firms are full of economists. It might be marketing or consumer strategies as well, because a lot of economics turns out to have quite a commercial application, which I'll come back to. It turns out many people, in the end, they want to have a professional qualification. So what they do after economics here is they may train to be an accountant. So you take a conversion course and take your professional qualification. And also law. Economics and law would be a classic combination. So again, you have economics, you take your legal training, and then your career is built on those two elements. So that's another route. Many people have no interest in the business world whatsoever, and what they're interested in is policy analysis. They end up having a job either in the government sector here in Ireland, internationally, so the European Commission, ECB, IMF, all of these places are full of economists, United Nations also. So there's a lot of demand out there for people whose interest in life is working out what policymakers should do. And that's very general. It's not just about what the budget next week should be. It could be climate change. We have a ton of people working on, should you tax carbon? Should you subsidize wind farms? All of those questions are economic questions where people build careers in those type of areas. Media. Well, the world of media is changing a lot. But if you kind of listen to people say in RTE or in the Irish Times, you really need economics in order to have a career in business journalism, but also political journalism also. By the way, for people who are interested in journalism, for sure you should be taking something else in university. You can take a master's in journalism, but people, the media world wants people who know something. They want you to know economics, or they want you to know science, or whatever. So you need to take something else in your university life. So going back to this issue about what is economics about, one basic split is between micro and macro, and that's going to recur throughout an economics career. Where micro is you're trying to work out what an individual should do. That could be an individual consumer trying to work out how to spend her money. It could be an individual firm. So should a firm charge a high price or low price? Should a firm invest in some new product all of those decisions have a big economic component. Again, if you think about a household, one issue is, when you go to the supermarket, what do you buy? But could be, should I go to college? When should I retire? Is a pension a good idea? Does it make sense? How many children should I have? There's a huge economics literature on the size of families. So there's all sorts of applications there about how individuals make decisions, where there's a ton of economics behind that. So for example, you can study that inside economics, but that's an area where TSM, economics and psychology, there's a lot of strength to having those two together when you're trying to think about individual behavior. So that you can go from that point of view, the micro point of view. And the other point of view is the macro point of view, which is you're trying to understand big questions. Why do we have a banking crisis here? Why has Africa struggled with poverty for so long? Should we care about the rise of China? Is that a good thing for the world or a bad thing for the world? Are we going to run out of oil? All of these questions are big questions where, again, economics is one way to try and answer those questions. So people basically split. I find it very rare that people are equally interested in the micro perspective and the macro perspective. And the range of courses you might take will differ according to which of those angles you care about more. What do you end up doing in an economics degree? So first of all, I would say it's a mix between real-world observation. Economics is definitely, every day there's new economic knowledge to be learned. Because every day we learn, well, why is it the case that the most recent US numbers look a bit weak? That's something to think about. Why is it the case that in the Irish economy that the export sector is doing well, but the local sector is doing badly? So all the time there's new questions to look at. There is a big element of that. You might be doing a lot of courses where you have to keep up with the flow of news on a daily or weekly basis. On the other hand, to other people, they think about it in a much more abstract way, which is, I want to step back from that kind of day-to-day business because it's just too noisy. And let me think about the core issues. Is it ever the case you want to rescue a banking system, or should you just let banks fail? Is it ever the case that you want to give aid to Africa, or is that just a bad idea in general? Is it ever the case that you should subsidize college education, or should students pay fees? So in other words, you can address these questions from principles. And by the way, that's an area where, again, economics can do a lot, but say the combination of economics and philosophy would be a great combination for a lot of those questions. In many cases, you can bring qualitative analysis. Essentially, is this generally a good idea? What kind of evidence would you look at, and so on. But economics, again, can also be very quantitative. So a lot of the skills, so you come out of economics basically with a lot of skills which you can apply in different areas. And a lot of, one big skill area is in terms of quantitative analysis. Is the economy going to grow by 3% next year or 6%? Is inflation going to be 2% or 1% or -5%? If a corporation raises price by 10%, is demand going to fall by 1%, 10%, 30%, and so on? So, quite a lot of times in life, you need a number. So, firms, they know, yeah, we know if we raise prices, demand will fall, but by how much? That is the big issue. That's where they say, let's call in the economists. You have many corporations where there's all sorts of different skills in a corporation. But for some questions, they basically say, okay, for price setting, we know we have to hand this question over because we need people with actually the skill set to look at that question and to do the analysis. So the quantitative analysis is something that you would learn a lot of here. Much more so than historically, because with the rise of computers, big data sets, and so on, you can do a lot more now than when I was studying 20 years ago along those lines. So in the end, people in an economics degree, whether it's here or elsewhere, some people whether they know it now or they know it over the course of their undergraduate career, know they want to go on and economics is going to be their professional life. And for economics as a profession, you need to learn various technical skills. So there would be courses in certain fourth year which might only get 20 students, but those are the students who want to learn more mathematics of economics and so on. So there's a technical end of economics, but it's basically maybe only 20, 25 people a year go that route. There's a big segment who are interested in economics because they want to use economics in a finance career or a business career. So these guys may still be single honors economics because the economics department would teach various finance, banking, money courses and so on. But they may also go joint. It might be joint economics and business. And then the third group would be the policy group, which again, they may say, well, I want to be an expert in economic policy analysis. That doesn't mean, as I say, just the analysis of economic policies. It could be climate change, it could be environmental, it could be housing, it could be healthcare. There's a huge amount of people working on the economics of the healthcare system. Should you shut down beds in this hospital or shut down beds in that hospital? If you impose a user charge on pharmaceuticals, how many people end up getting sick later on? So there's loads of questions in healthcare, which comes from an economics point of view. So you could do that from an economics perspective. Again, it could be joint. You could do economics and political science because you want to understand, yeah, we know what the government should do, but are they really going to do it? What are the political constraints? So that's a classic degree also, economics and political science. Again, the labour market. You can study that from an economic point of view, or it could be from a sociological point of view. How really are, let's say, for example, you have a workforce where they know the corporation is doing badly. Under what circumstances is the culture of that firm going to enable it to survive, and where the workforce is going to be supportive of management? Under what circumstances is the sociology of the workplace such that it's antagonistic and there's a conflict and so on? So economics and sociology is another area, especially in terms of labour economics, where there's a lot of crossover. So, from what I'm saying here is there's many different ways to understand what economics is about. There's a huge variety of outcomes. People end up doing all sorts of different jobs, some of which they use economics all the time. In other cases, the economics is just one flavour in what they're doing. So let me narrow that down. What I just said there, I think, applies to wherever you study economics. So the question is, what does Trinity have to offer? And one basic point here is you do have to make choices because economics can be done in different ways. The best program gives you the most economics because although year one has the mix where you take business, politics, sociology, and so on, after year one, you could become a single honours economics. You take a lot of courses in economics. So under BESS, you can come out with a single honours economics degree, which everyone understands. You've taken a ton of economics. Having said that, within BESS, it also gives you that platform in year one where you take a lot of different courses to know, well, I thought I liked economics, but in fact I don't. I'm going to do something else. Or I really want to have the flavour of economics and business, or economics and sociology, or economics and political science. So you can take a lot of joint degrees within the BESS program. TSM gives you that joint degree flavour, be kind of locked in from day one. So you can specialise in year four. So in year four, you can just take economics or just drop economics. But until then, you're essentially 50-50 between economics and some other course. So that's a strength if you really know what you want to do. So some of the classics are economics and psychology, Economics and mathematics is another classic combination, but there are a lot of other ones within the TSM program. And in the last number of years, we've introduced PPES, which is politics, philosophy, economics, and sociology. And the reason why that is, again, it's a kind of classic approach, is in Oxford, PPE, politics, philosophy, and economics, is the main social science degree in Oxford. So PPES is very similar, except we added on sociology. So again, within that program, you can end up just doing economics in final year. You can end up doing joint honours between economics and one of the other subjects, or you can take a mixed degree. So again, that's for those, because there are plenty of people who like economics, but they definitely know that their main interest is not from the business point of view, it's from the point of view of, how the world works, trying to understand how the world works, or from a policy point of view is how can I contribute to making the world a better place through policy making and so on. So the fact it's a 4-year program means the fact that best in year 1 is that kind of foundation year means you can still take a lot of economics while getting the diversity of more subjects. Whereas if you do arts and ECD, which is a 3-year degree, you just are going to take less. Because it's a 4-year degree, and that's what the US especially understands, and in the UK, because it's 3 years in the UK, but the A-levels are more specialised than the Leaving Cert, the 4-year degree of Trinity is very strong in the international job market. So I'm going to emphasise the international job market, not because we're in a recession, but if you want to have a top job in Dublin at the age of 35, all the data indicate having plenty of international experience in your 20s is the way to have a good job here in your 30s. The top slots in lots of corporations go to people who've got that international experience. And every year, people who have done well in economics in Trinity end up with the top investment banks, the top consulting firms, and so on, which is a very good way to get experience in your 20s. It's also the case for those who want to go on. People from Trinity, I think much more so from the other universities, find it easy to get into top postgrads. So every year we have people going off to the Ivy League. Every year we have people going off to LSE, UCL, and the top programs. So it's definitely a well-trodden path towards very good postgraduate programs. That's reflected in the staff backgrounds here. You're going to get taught here by people who've got their PhDs from Harvard, Berkeley, Georgetown, LSE, European University Institute, Bocconi, and so on. So we have a very good faculty, and we have very good culture here of teaching. We pay a lot of attention to good teaching, and again, I would emphasize the tutorial system. Because we have a lot of PhD students, we're able in the undergraduate program to reinforce the lectures with tutorials. So if you take economics here in year 1, on top of going to the lectures, you'd be in a group of 20 taking tutorials from a PhD student. And that's a great way to reinforce what you learn in lectures and so on. And again, I think we're the only university now which does that in a big way. Because of cutbacks or whatever, the other universities don't do that in any substantial way anymore. There's a very strong student culture in Trinity, which is true no matter what you do, but in economics, one big thing is Student Economic Review. So this is a publication put together by students out of the various essays they do for courses. And by this stage, it's going for nearly 30 years. It's very high visibility, not just here, but internationally also. The Trinity Economic Forum is a relatively new venture. Every year they bring in a lot of interesting speakers. And the debating societies, the HIST and the PHil, have a lot of economics talks. So just in the last 6 weeks, we've had 4 Nobel Prize winners in economics. Not because the economics department invited them, but because the HIST and the PHil did. So we've had the top class economists in the world who are happy to come because of the historical reputation of the HIST and the PHil. Essentially, they write a letter saying, previous recipients of these invited lectures include Jonathan Swift, Keynes maybe in the 1930s and so on. So people feel, yeah, I can do this. So Trinity has a big advantage in that way. You can learn a lot. Everything we do is on the website. So if you go to the economics website in Trinity, you can click on and say, well, if I take money in banking, what am I going to do? If I take development economics, what am I going to do? So you can learn about that. So in terms of the range of students we get, it's a mix. We have plenty of people who are really very high points. You know, they were excellent in school. And economics is a challenging subject, especially if you go to the technical area, which rewards people who are really top academic scholars who end up going on to do their PhDs and all of that. By the way, in economics, a PhD is not just for academia. If you want to be like, you know, a kind of economic analysis long-term for Goldman Sachs or for the IMF and so on, that is the route you take. But there's also plenty of people who like economics, but they end up focusing on more applied areas. They want to understand how the banking system works. They want to understand the core of how developing economies operate. They want to understand exchange rates. So they're interested because they want to know about something, not so much about the nitty-gritty of the economic models themselves. And we cater for all of these different groups. So I think at this point I'm going to stop because you can read all of the detailed information, and I think it's a good idea to take questions or comments. So please, if you have a question, most people here I'm sure are interested in the questions. So you know, please ask your questions. Yeah. It ranges. I mean, I think best was like 495 last year. Some of the TSM options are in the mid 500s. So it depends on what you want to do. But I think, I mean, there's about 400 places in best. So a lot of people take best. So it's more, you know, we have a lot of spaces. So I wouldn't view it as massively exclusive in any way. And another point to say is, honestly speaking, I should say, by the way, about 75% of people either get a first or 2-1 in the end. So it's harder to get in than to do well. You know, we'd prefer to triple the size of economics, but the government doesn't operate like that. So in other words, economics can be studied with a lot fewer points than 495, but it's just there's a limited number of spaces, and that's the competition. Yeah.
For a degree in PPES, how easy is it to study a year ago in the States?
So in general, there are many ways to take a year away. It depends within PPES what subjects you do. So economics, for example, we'd have because economics is more or less the same around the world. So in the US context, there are programs with the University of California, with Georgetown, with Boston College in particular. But some people design their own exchange. Whereas I think philosophy, for example, they have a kind of more narrow program, and they're more reluctant to encourage people to go overseas because they say, well, it's crucial you take these courses, and if you go overseas, you may not have those available. So it depends on within PPES what you do. Yeah. You take more economics is basically the answer. So in third year, I think PPES, you can only specialize in the final year. Whereas in BEST, you can start specializing in year 2. So you can take more courses. And honestly speaking, this is an issue if you want to do a master's in economics. Because if you want to do a master's in economics, an admissions committee at Harvard or LSE may say, you've not taken enough economics in PPES. So it is a limitation. People coming out of Oxford have the same problem. They're not taking enough economics. So it depends on what you want to do afterwards. For postgrad, no, I think I was trying to say it earlier on. De facto, if you want to be a professional economist, say for an investment bank or for the IMF or the European Central Bank or the Irish government for that matter, a PhD is the professional qualification. So people have to stay on if they want to be a professional economist. Yeah.
What you just said about economics, taking economics to a higher level postgraduate
Yeah.
with regard to PTES, does that also apply to the other subjects in PTES or only?
My guess in the other subjects, because the postgraduate level would not be as technical as in economics, they would be fine. But economics, because you need to, it's progressive in terms of technical material, I think you would face a problem. Also, that's also true with TSM, unless you're doing economics and mathematics, because mathematics is technical also. So I think you should be aware of that if that's in your midterm future.